The last 5 coaching decisions that I'm going to go over were all not very good decisions. We're going to start with the Jets because they did kind of similar to the same thing the Saints did. Nobody wants to work here. Let's take a chance. And I think that was a pretty good decision, but at the end of the day, you're kind of stranded. The Jets hired Aaron Glenn. He's a defensive guy. He's a pretty decent defensive guy, but he's no earth shatterer. He's not, like a Mike McDonald in Seattle who's just so brilliant. Or a Jesse Minter with the Chargers who just runs such a crazy defense that he improves the actual roster. Like, their defense is better than the sum of their parts because they're so well coordinated. That's not Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn runs a lot of man. He blitzes when he feels he doesn't have the horses to cover. He's not that creative. He's not doing anything innovative or crazy. He's old-fashioned. He's pretty smart. He comes from the Dan Campbell tree, so I bet you he's a great leader. I bet you he goes for it on 4th down, although he is still going to be a defensive head coach. They tend to be very conservative on 4th down and in general offensive play calling. And I don't think that Aaron Glenn's really any different from Robert Saleh, which it's a lot of drama to not end up different, right? The benefit is, one, Aaron Glenn probably deserved a shot. I mean, he's been a really well-regarded defensive coordinator for a long time, and somebody had to bite the bullet and give him a chance to show why defensive coordinators can't be head coaches. So you got it out of the way. And you hired a guy who used to play for you. That's kind of cool. Plus, Aaron Glenn brought a bunch of Detroit guys with him, and that's good. That's the real reason that I don't want to say I'm optimistic, but the real reason that I think the Jets did a good job is twofold. One, like the Saints, the Jets are a disaster that you do not want to touch. They've got a dysfunctional ownership group. They don't have a lot of cap space. They have no answer at quarterback and no path to an answer, right? Like, they can't even go after Sam Darnold because he hates that organization so much. So what are they going to do? They just got rid of Aaron Rodgers, probably not trading for Stafford, right? Their cap and their picks are all messed up because they gave up everything for Rodgers. Are you going to lose Devontae Adams too? So now you're left with a wide receiver core that's just some young developmental guys and fucking Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's good. He's not some superstar. He's not like the thing you build around. It's not a very pretty situation. And then add in the New York fans and media who are just going to split your throat if you're anything short of fantastic. It's a tough ask. The second reason that I'm excited about this, or not pessimistic about it, is probably a better way to put it. You got Tanner Engstrand from the Lions as your offensive coordinator. Now, I got a few buddies who are Lions fans, and one of them in particular is real, shall we say, tied in. He's got buddies in the front office. He's really a passionate fan. He knows some things. And a year ago, when it looked like Ben Johnson was going to take off for Washington, I said, you guys are screwed. Who's going to call plays? And he said, well, this Tanner Engstrand guy is like Ben Johnson's right-hand man, and I think he might be a genius too. Okay. Let's see what happens. And we haven't seen, we don't know. But Tanner Engstrand's going to get a chance to call some plays. And if he's 80% of Ben Johnson, right? Like if he's close, if he even just remembers the playbook, it's a pretty good start. Now, I think the issue is this. If, let's say Tanner Engstrand is brilliant and he turns whatever bridge quarterback they bring in into a legitimate starter, or at least, makes him thought of like that. That's awesome. But now what? Like in a year or maybe 2 years, when people start calling Tanner Engstrand and saying like, hey, why don't you come interview for this head coaching job? Are you going to fire Aaron Glenn 2 years in to keep his offensive coordinator as your head coach? Probably not. And if that's the case, you're fucked. Because while Aaron Glenn is the one who found. I hate this argument. People are like, oh, well, who hired Tanner Engstrand in the first place? He'll find more. Dan Campbell found Ben Johnson. He'll find a new one too. No, he won't. It's called the one who got away. Sometimes you find a real pretty girl and she's really great and you get along real well and you do something dumb. And she breaks up with you. And 20 years down the line, you never found another one like her and you end up marrying someone a lot worse. It's called the one who got away. White Buffalo. Aaron Glenn doesn't work for Detroit anymore. And even if he did, Ben Johnson's not there. So he's not directly tied in to Ben Johnson's pipeline anymore. Ben Johnson being the one who's training these coaches, right? Tanner Engstrand is the first branch off of the Ben Johnson tree. If Tanner Engstrand works, that means that the Ben Johnson tree probably works. But Aaron Glenn is no longer near that tree. So where's Aaron Glenn going to go? Remember, the same guy who hired Ben Johnson in Dan Campbell, before he hired Ben Johnson, his first choice at offensive coordinator was Anthony Lynn. So maybe there's a lot of luck involved in these things. And maybe there's not an unlimited supply of top 10 offensive minds. You know, like logic would insist. So even if Aaron Glenn hired the great offensive coordinator and it works out gangbusters, now what? And that's kind of the issue. That being said, I don't really think the Jets had a shot in hell this year. I don't think their roster is nearly as, in the Aaron Rodgers era, people were talking about like, oh, this Jets roster, this Jets defense. Fucking why? What's so good about it? Their defensive line's mediocre. Sauce Gardner is good, but he was overrated. I think their secondary is solid. Their secondary is even good. It's not amazing. Their defensive line is solid. It might even be good, but it's not amazing. Their offense is not good. What is there to be excited about? Jets fans, I feel like you kind of just ran in place on this one, but you added the opportunity to be heartbroken in 2 years. God forbid the reality that the Jets draft a quarterback next year. Let's say the Jets go and they get like an Arch Manning or whoever the most hyped guy is. And Tanner Engstrand makes him Rookie of the Year. And then Tanner Engstrand walks and goes to be the head coach of some other team. Now what? You're screwed. And I guarantee that when that happens, Jets fans will think that they're going to be okay because no, Aaron Glenn's a winning coach. He won the games. And also our quarterback's elite because look at he put up the good stats and he's just a rookie. He's only going to get better. And then they're going to lose the guy who actually was the engine behind this whole thing, Tanner Engstrand, theoretically, hypothetically. And it's all going to fall to shit. And they're going to be like, what happened? Exactly like it happened with RG3 in Washington all those years ago. Turns out, RG3 wasn't the cause. He wasn't the guy. Turns out, it wasn't about Mike Shanahan necessarily either being the coach. When Kyle Shanahan left, so did all the success. The Jets did fine, but as a Jets fan, maybe a really good time to find some hobbies outside of football. It's going to be a tough 2 years. Minimum. All right. If you just wanted to hear the Jets part, that's it. Otherwise, let's go to all the negative hires.